Funding for Shaperillis is provided by
SurfsharkVPN, the sponsor of today's video. Hey guys, I've got some bad news.
Bad news?
Yeah, so here goes. Tragically, over the course of the past year, my weeb arc has been completed, and I am an anime fan now.
Next we have...
I know, it's truly unfortunate. But, and I'm about to say something that might sound crazy to a lot of you, but hear me out. A lot of anime is good, actually? That's fair. You guys can hit the unsubscribe button now. That's totally fair. I get it. But yeah, I was actively avoiding watching anime for a while now. Like, I dipped my toes in stuff like the Persona series or the Ghibli movies, but I didn't want to commit to watching a full anime series. Mainly because the medium is pretty overwhelming and I didn't really know where to start. Plus, the reputation anime generally has didn't really help matters. Obviously, there are a lot of shitty and off-putting tropes in anime, and they really do suck whenever they pop up. But I found that there's so many other amazing things the medium has to offer. So many incredible stories and unforgettable characters and wonderfully animated sequences with beautiful art styles and just... they're good! Lots of anime are incredibly good! And I mean lots, because over the course of the past year, I found the time to watch 32 different anime shows. I'm sorry guys, but my weeb arc is now complete, and I'm entirely indoctrinated now. I love anime, Charlie! I love anime!
I would really not be screaming that at the top of your lungs.
So what sparked this sudden interest, you may ask? Why now have I finally decided to start watching this truly obscene number of animes one after the other? Honestly, it's because the girl I had a crush on was really into anime and I wanted to spend more time with her by watching some of her favorite shows. Yes, I deadass was just like that fucking kid from the Lorax. But instead of the one slur telling me about trees, he was showing me Fullmetal Alchemist. That's kind of badass, actually. Anyway, now that girl and I are actually dating. So the moral of the story is, start watching anime and you will get a girlfriend, probably. Results not guaranteed.
Also this.
Some asexuals are also aromantic, but others have relationships like anyone else.
Now you know.
But yeah, for the past year, as I toiled away working on videos during the daytime, the evenings were usually reserved for watching anime with the GF and some of our other friends. We all took turns suggesting anime we liked, and my turns consisted of anime I'd heard great things about that none of us had seen before, or anime I watched in my free time that I really enjoyed and wanted to share with the group. And now, since we started this whole anime watching tradition in October 2021, I'd like to reflect on all the shows I've watched in that time and share my thoughts. I pretty much liked every single anime I've watched to some extent, with two exceptions which we'll get to. But overall, this is going to be a very positive video. Essentially just a series of show recommendations that may get some people who are hesitant to get into anime to try a couple of them out. I also thought about ranking all the anime, but that would be a terrible idea and I would never hear the end of some of my placements. Nor do I remember the exact order the gang and I watched these shows in, so I can't really put them in that order for this video. So instead, let's just take things simple and go in alphabetical order. I'm also sorry if I say something stupid about one of these shows, because I'm extremely new to anime and how all of it works. I might make more mistakes here than usual, so sorry again.
That was my mistake.
Oh, and also, my girlfriend agreed to do kazoo covers of various anime OPs for the transitions in this video, so everybody thank her for that. One last thing. Because I get a lot of requests to talk about anime in general, there might be a couple of interruptions in this video from people who are really eager to hear me talk about certain shows. So sorry if that ends up happening.
Hey James, this is Lady Emily. You know, from the channel Lady Emily and co-writer Emily from Sarah's Ed. I'm sure you know. I was really wondering if you could talk about the Ace Attorney anime. It's something I'm really curious to hear you talk about, given that it's an adaptation of such an iconic game series, bringing it to life with full voice acting and motion. How did this work for you? Did you like it or not?
Good questions, Lady Emily. Let me try and answer them now. I'd say that the Ace Attorney anime is a pretty good way to start this video, considering it's a lot more accessible and easy to get into than most other anime. It is, after all, an adaptation of a very popular video game series, one that I really got into a couple months prior to this whole anime binge. So at some point I figured, why not, and watch this whole anime on my own. And I gotta say, it's actually a really solid adaptation of the original games. Not perfect, I mean it obviously has to omit a lot of details from the originals, and some cases don't really live up to how they were portrayed in the games. In particular, I was disappointed by the adaptation of Farewell My Turnabout, which didn't involve nearly as much fear and dread as the game version did. And the show can feel somewhat repetitive, like by the 500th time you see someone point and blow air at their opponent, it can get a bit old. But for the most part, I think they do a great job of bringing the visual novel worlds to life and realizing these iconic characters incredibly well. All of their quirks are intact and it's pretty fun to see them all in a 3D space. The show is really funny too, and despite some missing details here and there, they do a pretty good job making the cases fun to watch even with the interactivity removed. One disappointing thing is that they don't adapt Case 1-5, Rise from the Ashes, which is actually one of my least favorite cases to play because of how tedious and drawn out the gameplay is, but it has one of the best stories and cast of characters in the entire series, and I would have loved to see it on screen. Especially Damon Gant. I don't know why, but I love this smug motherfucker. He's one of the best villains in the series, and he just ain't in the anime, man. On the other hand, the coolest thing about this series is that they actually add new stories that weren't in any of the games. There's tons of standalone backstory episodes showing the main characters as kids that are really emotionally powerful, as well as an entire new case they made from scratch that takes place on a train. And it's great! Honestly, it's so cool that this anime actually adds stuff to the world of Ace Attorney. It's awesome to see. On the whole, the show isn't amazing, but it's pretty good and I definitely recommend it to Ace Attorney fans, especially the episodes that aren't based on cases from the games. For non-Ace Attorney fans, I'd recommend playing the games first, but if you don't have enough time, this is a pretty solid alternative. However, one thing that is absolutely a must-watch for every living being, regardless of whether you've seen this anime or whether you're a fan of Ace Attorney at all, is the English dub bloopers.
But what if it turns out that Ron Delight isn't really mask to mask after all?
Oh, because his wife said he was delusional? Come on, Nick, she's not even that hot!
And she's fine, she's prettier than you.
Legit some of the funniest things I've ever seen, and I can't believe they were allowed to be released.
To the contrary, we're prepared to hear their statement at any time.
Oh, your suit is loud.
Best thing to come out of the show by far.
In the end, these struggles only brought us closer, and I couldn't wait to get away from them, because they're the most irritating f***heads I've ever known. Goodbye, Cleveland.
Alright, one anime down, 31 more to go. This'll be easy, as long as there's no more interruptions.
Hey Schaff, it's me, 24 Frames of Nick, and I think it's time that you talk about one of my personal favorites, Assassination Classroom. I love it because of the amazing, colorful cast of characters and the incredibly fun teacher, and just the vibe overall. Tell me why you also love it so much, just like me. Tell me you love it. Say you love it. I need to know that you love it. Please.
24 Frames of Nick? From the YouTube channel, 24 Frames of... You know what, I'm not doing that whole bit again. Anyway, sure man. Let's talk about Assassination Classroom now. Assassination Classroom has one of the coolest and most unique premises for a show that I've ever seen. Basically, a mysterious, ultra-powerful octopus creature vows to destroy the world, unless he can be assassinated by one of the students in a class that he randomly decides to start teaching. You constantly wonder through the majority of the show why exactly this insanely strong being would do something so bizarre and random. And, let's just say the answers are worth the wait. This is a really fun series, with the octopus teacher Koro-sensei easily being the best character. His quirky mannerisms and insane powers are matched only by the genuine care he starts displaying for his students. The show starts with such a bleak outlook since, you know, killing this dude and saving the world seems genuinely impossible and it feels like he's just sadistically tormenting these students. But then as it goes on, you get attached to the genuine bonds these students form with Koro-sensei. It's incredibly well done, and you enjoy the episodes where they're just studying for exams as much as the ones with cool as shit assassination attempts in them. It's really good, but I wouldn't call it perfect. I wish some of the students were better developed, because I don't really remember too many of them, outside of a small handful like Nagisa and Karma. There's a twist involving one of the students that's pretty cool on paper, but was really poorly executed and abruptly resolved, leading to a ton of missed potential for that character. And, yeah, one thing I really don't like in anime is excessive fan service, and yeah, there's this one character who only exists to be the big booby lady, plus she's an incredibly mean and unlikable person, and yeah, I just hate everything about her. The fan service in this series gets real old real quick, and Professor Bitch over here is the most prominent proponent of that. but if you can weather some of the bad shit in this show, it's absolutely worth it to see it through to the end. The story revelations later on that make sense of the premise are great and incredibly powerful, and the second to last episode of this show made me sob harder than any other anime episode I've ever seen. Overall, a really strong show that's absolutely worth experiencing and reaching the fantastic ending of, in spite of some problems. Cowboy Bebop is one of the most beloved and acclaimed anime out there, and for good reason. It stars the titular Cowboy Bebop as he goes on his computer and then does epic bounty hunting things, like how Boba Fett does. I think that's what the show is about. I don't know, I only watched the trailer for the live action remake. Let me go watch the real show now and get back to you. Wow, that fucking rocked. Cowboy Bebop follows a crew of quirky bounty hunters who take on missions across the galaxy. It's a very episodic show, and any overarching plot is very minimal, which is really the only thing about it that doesn't gel with me. I can't call it a problem with the show, because it's more so just an issue with my personal taste. I'd prefer it if a show like this, with so much action and compelling world building and interesting characters, was paired with a more present ongoing narrative. But again, that's just a preference thing. As far as action-based episodic shows go, this is absolutely fantastic. Such great style in both the animation and the music, coupled with characters that I just never wanted to stop spending time with. Spike and Jet are some of the coolest characters in any anime I've seen. Faye is such a delightful bad bitch who's fun to watch and gets so much more compelling the more we learn about her. And my favorite character in the whole show is Ed, who is one of the silliest scrunklos I've ever seen in anything ever. I don't really know which episodes are fan favorites and if any of them are disliked by anyone, but I swear to God, if any of you hate Mushroom Samba, I'm going to cry. Honestly, the worst thing I can say about this show is that I just wanted more of it. It's great that it didn't overstay its welcome and gave us a strong run of 26 episodes. But man, a second season would have been so nice. I would have loved for someone like Cowboy Andy to become a recurring character in multiple episodes. Plus it would have been cool if some stories like the Sympathy for the Devil, Mad Perot, or Brain Scratch episodes got to be two-parters, since I really liked their antagonists and wanted to see more of them. I feel like a version of this show that continued into a somewhat more plot-driven season 2 would legitimately be one of my favorite shows ever. But at the same time, I know that the appeal of the show for a lot of people is how self-contained the episodes are, so maybe I'm just weird. Plus, the show did wrap up in a phenomenal way. I can't praise those last 2 episodes enough. So yeah, Cowboy Bebop is easily worth your time if you've never seen it before somehow. Check it out, it's epic. Oh, hold up, I'm getting a phone call. Hello? Sure, why not? Do I even need to explain what Death Note is about? It's Death Note. Even people who don't know anything about anime know about Death Note. Come on. It's such a simple yet engaging as all hell premise, following the deliciously sinister villain protagonist Light Yagami as he writes the names of criminals in his supernatural notebook and causes them to die, cementing his status as the god of potato chips or something. Everything about the show's presentation is top notch, from the eerie music to the muted color palette to the exceptional cinematography. The enthralling game of cat and mouse between Light and El is such an absolute delight to watch unfold, with the elaborate plans and mind games these two characters employ being incredible. And Ryuk is probably my favorite character, because he's just a funny dude. Like, I honestly wish there was way more of him, and I'm upset that they took out the Mario Golf reference he made in the manga. It's such a specific sub-series for him to be a fan of, and I just find it so hysterical. Also, El has a bunch of funny moments too. Nobody told me this show was so funny, on top of its dark atmosphere and compelling drama. I do have some problems, like Misa is really annoying and underwritten, and I wish there was more to her than just being a light simp. She has a pretty cool design, but that's about the best thing I can say about her. Also, I will admit, there was one stretch in the first 25 episodes where one character gets amnesia that I thought just went on a bit too long. It had an incredible payoff, and I know why it had to happen, but I just really missed the old version of that character, and I wish this stretch didn't go on as long as it did. Ultimately, that's a pretty minor gripe though. Anywho, I bet you're wondering how I feel about those last 12 episodes, huh? It seems like the fandom is pretty split on them, and like, it's pretty obvious why. Without getting into spoilers, I do like Nier as a character, and I think he's more distinct than people give him credit for. But yeah, they could have made him more unique. And I'll say this, even though I was mostly engaged with the last 12 episodes, I kinda don't like the way this show ends. Again, it's borderline impossible to talk about it without spoilers, and I really don't want to ruin the show for people who haven't seen it yet, because it is extremely good. But yeah, for those of you who have seen it, I just couldn't buy that this is the way things would wrap up based on everything we've seen the characters do in the rest of the show. I do like the last 12 episodes overall, but the way they conclude did kinda leave a bad taste in my mouth, and I almost kinda wish the show did end at episode 25. I don't know, there seem to be a lot of varied takes about this, and I think everyone's take is equally valid. At least the final episode had a really cool speech from one of the characters, and a good last shot for them as well. Anyway, yeah, I have some personal problems with it, but overall, I fully understand and appreciate the appeal of Death Note. It's a really great show with a ton to love about it, from the technical aspects to the writing. Definitely give it a watch if it's somehow eluded you for this long. Demon Slayer seems to be the hot new thing on the block as of late. I see merch for it everywhere, a ton of people are talking about it. There was a Demon Slayer movie that became the highest grossing film of all time in Japan, and the highest grossing movie of 2020? What? It's thanks to the pandemic-induced blockbuster delays that we now have Weeb Shit following up Avengers Endgame as the highest grossing movie of its respective year. That's funny. Now, I bet you're wondering, does Demon Slayer deserve all this hype? I'm gonna be totally honest with you and say, yes, definitely, absolutely. I'm really into this show, even though it's not the most complicated thing in the world. Both its premise and the execution of said premise are rather simple. There are demons in the world, and the demon slayers gotta slay them. In particular, we follow Tanjiro, who becomes a demon slayer in the hopes of finding a cure that'll change his sister Nezuko, who got turned into a demon, back into a human. He goes on missions with his companions, funny nacho outfit boy and funny boarhead dude. The show is very Monster of the Week-esque early on, but it gradually progresses into longer arcs that continue to develop the characters and tell meatier stories. I personally couldn't stand the Nacho Kid Zenitsu at first because of how whiny and annoying he was, but he gradually progresses into a more competent and less shrill hero as time goes on. Tanjiro himself is somewhat generic, but still enjoyable and easy to root for, especially as the series continues to delve into how much pain he feels inside. And Inosuke was epic from the start, and he remains epic as the series goes on, so that's nice. The tone of the series is just right, perfectly balancing comedy and drama in a way that I just can't get enough of. Despite all the gore and tragedy, I'd honestly call it pretty lighthearted and fun, which is a wild feat that I have to commend the showrunners for achieving. The animation, from the art direction to the way fight scenes are composed, is nothing short of tremendous. Some of the best I've seen in any show. I really just can't overstate how visceral and exciting the battles in this series are, especially in Season 2, which I consider to be a huge step up over the already really strong first season. I thought some parts of Season 1, like the forest arc, dragged on a tad too long, and the season finale really wasn't anything all that interesting, but the Mugen Train movie and Entertainment District arc were both incredibly creative and engaging all the way through. The pacing of both stories was perfect. Neither one felt rushed, nor did they overstay their welcome. They introduced really fun and interesting villains, and the Mugen Train arc cemented Rengoku as my favorite character in the whole show. Set your heart ablaze indeed. I should also mention that out of all the anime I've seen, this one is second only to Assassination Classroom in terms of making me sob insanely hard at a certain moment. So, there's that. Yeah, I mean, what can I say? I really dig this show and I wholeheartedly recommend it. Oh, and make sure you never skip the Taisho era secrets after the credits. They are charming as heck. So, my girlfriend is really into the Fate series. Like, really into it. Like, there's gonna be a lot of Fate shows talked about in this video. I'm not even gonna begin to describe the plot of any of these shows for newcomers, because I feel like Fate is one of those things where you either know that you like it, or you don't. Me personally, I think it's incredibly cool conceptually, and there's a lot of great Fate content out there, some of which we'll get to later. But there's also a lot of shitty Fate products from what my GF told me. I don't know, this might be an incredibly stupid comparison, but it kinda reminds me of Star Wars. Just this gigantic franchise spread out across multiple mediums that's half incredible, half shitty. And you just kinda have to pick and choose the different products you want to consume.
The geography that I stands compares you superior. You underrated my ability.
That's my dumbass perspective on it anyway. So yeah, I've really liked most of what my girlfriend showed me from Fate because she shielded me from all the bad content. Except Fate Apocrypha, a show that she admitted was mid going in, and yeah, I'd have to declare it one of only 2 anime in this video I did not like. I'm just gonna breeze through this so we can get to the good Fate stuff. Essentially, the cast of this show is over-bloated, and a lot of the cool and likable characters like Kairi, Mordred, Fran, or Shakespeare don't get nearly enough screen time or fun things to do. I don't hate the main protagonist Sieg as much as other people. He's not quite as boring as the protagonist of the next Fate show we're gonna talk about, but yeah, he's still pretty boring. Jack the Ripper is the worst thing I've seen in Fate, and everything with them made me want to die. Why is this little girl dressed like that? I hate anime so much sometimes.
Yes, yes, burn the child.
In the end, this show is honestly kind of forgettable and disposable, and I didn't get a whole lot out of it. Fortunately, the other Fate shows I watched are actually good, so let's get to those now. Fate, Grand Order, Absolute Demonic Front, Babylonia. Good lord, my girlfriend told me the show was just called Babylonia. Why is this title like this?
Well, it's like that because it's adapting a single singularity from Fate Local to Fate Critical. The title is a mobile chapter, and the source title is singularity and location.
Yeah. Anyway, what'd you think?
This show is pretty good. It has a very unique setting compared to the other Fate shows I watched, that being the titular Babylonia. The plot felt pretty standard, and it wasn't the most engaging thing in the world, but I really grew to love the characters, and they really carried a lot of the show for me. Except Ritsuka Fujimaru, who is probably one of the most boring protagonists I've seen in any anime. Even so, Mash was pretty cool, Quetzalcoatl and Ishtar were fun additions, Merlin was voiced by Robbie Daymond in the dub, so it was fun to pretend that he was Akechi.
You may have the privilege of calling me Akechi. Did you say?
I have Goro Akechi brain rot, and I think out of everyone, Gilgamesh really stole the show here. Compared to how menacing and villainous he is in other Fate shows, which we may or may not talk about very soon, it's really interesting to see this rather chill version of him, who mainly just wants to dress up and travel together with Enkidu. Yeah, pretty fun show. Not top tier Fate content or anything, but I really enjoyed it. Alright, now it's a party. Fate Zero was actually the first anime my girlfriend and I watched together, so it holds a special place in my heart for that reason. Aww. Also, it's really great. This is generally considered one of the best and most popular Fate shows out there, and it's easy to see why. If you want to abide by my Fate Star Wars analogy, then in terms of its story, this show is basically the Revenge of the Sith of Fate. Except better quality-wise. It's a dark and tragic prequel to Fate Stay Night, with so many compelling characters competing against each other in the Holy Grail War, all in the hopes of having their deepest wishes granted. My favorite character in this whole show is Bill Clinton.
I think the biggest obstacle for us will be this Clinton guy. He will prove a more formidable opponent than Darius III.
But my next favorite characters are Waver Velvet and his servant Iskandar. They're usually presented as a silly comic relief duo compared to the much more serious rest of the cast. But their bond over the course of the series is simply beautiful, and I became really attached to them. Iskandar in particular might just be my favorite Fate character of all time. I adored his intense, dramatic, powerful scenes, in addition to his lighthearted comedic moments. Saber has a lot of great scenes where her perspective is challenged by the people around her, as well as a wonderful relationship with Irisveal. Gilgamesh is his usual delightfully sinister self. There's a serial killer guy voiced by Johnny Yongbosch in the dub, so all I hear is Adachi.
My hobby is murder of all varieties. I really like kids and sometimes young women.
Baby Reen gets an entire episode to herself for some weird reason. I don't really see the point of that. She kind of has her own show. I mean, I guess at the time she didn't have her own show, but she had her own game. I don't know, just why? And Kiritsugu Emiya is super tragic and compelling. The 2 episodes that delved into his backstory were easily my favorites of the whole show, and probably my favorite Fate content in general. The show is also super cool because as great as the action is, there's also a lot of tremendously profound conversation scenes between characters where we see their ideals challenged and pitted against each other. It's incredibly compelling stuff. I guess if I had any gripes, it's that the ensemble cast makes it so the focus is really spread out. Not as much as Fate Apocrypha, obviously, it still really works, but I do like it when there's a central main character, and I don't think Kiritsugu really fits that role until the second half of the show. The ending is also intentionally unsatisfying, which, like, I get why, it's not a problem or anything, but it was also a tad confusing and poorly explained.
Who the fuck is
Angry Matthew?
It made enough sense on rewatch, but it might come across as unfulfilling on your first viewing. Speaking of which, the show was pretty good on my first viewing, but on the second watch almost almost a year later, armed with a ton more knowledge about the Fate series as a whole, I could really appreciate this show a lot more and recognize just how great it truly is. A lot of people say start with this show if you've never seen anything Fate related before, but I kind of feel like Unlimited Blade Works is a much more accessible entry point, and that it would be better to watch Fate Zero as a follow-up to that. Either way, both incredible shows that I dig a lot.
James, you know what this video needs? It needs a bit more baskets of the fruit variety.
Oh, sorry, you mean like this?
James, I can't take it anymore. When are you getting to Fruits Basket?
I mean, maybe I can get to it next.
Please. Toru Honda literally inspired me to be a better person when I was like 9 years old. It's an amazing show with so many amazing multifaceted characters. Please.
Okay, I'm doing it. Here it is. Fruits Basket is a show where you think you're watching it for the unique supernatural premise. Like, oh wow, people in this family turn into one of the Chinese zodiac animals whenever they're weak or they get hugged by someone of the opposite sex. That's gonna lead to some wacky hijinks as they try and keep that a secret. Hoo boy. But then as you watch it, you start to realize that they don't really use this premise all that often in the stories they tell. And most of the show is just pleasant slice of life stuff with these really nice, likable characters. After a while, you sort of don't mind that the supernatural premise doesn't get brought up that much, because you're just having a great time following these nice people as they support one another and try and help each other unpack their trauma, and yeah, I kind of absolutely adore this show. It's the anime equivalent of a warm hug, just something that I couldn't get enough of because of how overwhelmingly sweet and wholesome it is. There's an overarching plot, but it moves at a fairly glacial pace, and you know what? That's okay, because I could just spend time with these endearing, lovable characters forever. Toru is one of the sweetest and most lovable protagonists in anything I've watched, and seeing her overwhelming positivity leave such a potent impact on the members of the Soma family just delighted me to no end. Yuki and Kyo are incredibly entertaining and layered people. Momichi is probably my favorite character because he's just so darn adorable, while also exhibiting great growth by the end of the series. I really love the badass Uotani and her connection with Toru's mother. Even the main villain, Akito, who's just so heinously hateable at the beginning of this show. You slowly start to unravel her layers and realize what made her this way. And it's absolutely gut-wrenching, even though the character is so evil. Speaking of gut-wrenching, literally everyone in this show has some sort of tragic backstory, most of which are executed incredibly well. I'd be lying if I said it didn't get a bit excessive as it went along, and eventually some of the tragic backstories can get predictable because of how many there are, but it's mostly some tremendous stuff. Also, I don't like everyone. Like, Shigure is a creep who only gets worse the more you learn about him. Kagura being in love with and constantly beating up her cousin Kyo is like... no. Ritsu is a little annoying and too screamy, but they barely show up, so whatever. In spite of some issues, this show is nothing short of amazing, and I would highly recommend it. I was just as captivated by the final few intensely dramatic and uplifting episodes as I was by the characters just putting on a high school play. I could watch these lovable scrimblos do anything, and it would be entertaining. Please check it out. Like I said, it's not super plot focused, but it's got some amazing character work that actually makes you settle into and appreciate the slow pace. Great stuff all around. Even though Yuki and the student council president obviously should have ended up together. Ooh boy, another phone call. Wonder what this one's about. Hello?
James, ever since you had the audacity to casually name drop the fictional love of my life in your Sk8 video, I have not known a moment's peace. Please, for the love of God, talk about Fullmetal Alchemist before I physically explode.
What's that one about again?
I mean, come on, the third highest rated animated series on IMDb? The show that delivers a beautiful story about found family and humanity's capacity for redemption while also offering intelligent commentary on military corruption, scientific progress, and morality? The show that gave us one of the most endearing sibling duos in animation history and one of the best tragic love stories ever written? Which inspired me to write 2 pretty dope songs that you should all go listen to. James, please, I'm begging you, my entire life has been leading to this moment, no pressure, bye.
Boom.
Ooh boy, the pressure's on. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is really fucking good. I know, right? What a shock. What a bold-ass opinion that was. But yeah, no, this pretty much entirely lived up to the hype, and I honestly have no major complaints. Maybe the part where they were at Fort Briggs was too slow and went on a little too long, but that's it. For the most part, this is one of the richest and most complete stories I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. There are so many intensely compelling and layered characters, to the point where any one of them could carry their own show. But the fact that we get all of them in the span of a single series is just insane. Ed and Al's bond is so beautiful, and they're incredibly sympathetic and enjoyable characters on their own. Roy and Riza's connection and the layers to their relationship we gradually see over time are fantastic. Winry's probably my favorite character in the whole show for how gosh darn adorable she is, on top of her tragic elements. Ling Yao and Greed have such a legitimately fascinating dynamic. The fantastic villains like Wrath, Pride, and Envy add so much dread to the proceedings. Seriously, I can't stress enough. Envy is fascinating enough with such a dark history, cool powers, and sadistic intent that they could very well have served as an amazing main antagonist. But they're just one member of the mini-boss squad here, which works because of how threatening and interesting the other villains are. And there's so much texture to this world, with the locations having such a rich history, and the often gruesome rules of alchemy and the homunculi sticking out in your mind and leaving a lasting impression. The gory elements complement the drama incredibly well, and the occasional goofy comedy is also a great touch that endears you to the characters even more than you already are. And the story progression, from simply following Ed and Al's quest to get their bodies back, to watching as this quest slowly gets them involved in this huge overarching government conspiracy that involves so many different characters and was orchestrated by Mike Wazowski.
Who could have orchestrated something as terrible as this?
He orchestrated it.
Mike Wazowski!
Incredible. I could go on about this show, but I feel like everyone's already said every good thing about it ever. It's my girlfriend's favorite show of all time, and I'm not surprised by her impeccable taste. As for me, it's definitely up there as one of the best shows and greatest stories I've ever had the pleasure of watching. Oh, and the character card transitions where the narrator says Fullmetal Alchemist. Fullmetal Alchemist in different inflections. Come on! How can you not love this show? It's a masterpiece.
Fuck yeah!
Now we can finally move on to, oh my god, what is it now?
Hey James, I have something super important to tell you. I think you need to talk about Kaguya-sama Love is War.
Aha! I already talked about Kaguya.
Okay, well, talk about it again.
Damn, I didn't think about that. Okay, I will. I've already made a full video on Kaguya-sama Love is War that you can check out, and seeing as it covers the first 2 seasons, I'll mostly tailor my discussion in this video around Season 3, which might just be the best season of the show yet. A1 Pictures has done it again, continuing to up the ante on the hysterical writing and endlessly creative direction. Now that I have tons of anime to compare this show to, it's becoming incredibly evident just how above and beyond the presentation of this show goes. The visual gags are just so inventive and well realized, and the show never loses any momentum with its creativity. It keeps you on your toes as it goes along with a seemingly endless bag of surprises in store. It's just so extra in the best possible way, making the comedy land 10 times harder than it did in the already excellent manga. And on top of how much flair the anime's presentation adds to the proceedings, the story and characters are as fantastic as ever as well. Getting a proper introduction to Maki was great, and she's quickly cemented herself as one of my favorites, what with her mischievous personality and whatnot. I loved the karaoke episode with Hayasaka, which further cemented her as the best girl in anything ever. Which further cemented her as the best girl in anything ever. But then the way it led into the rap episode, holy shit, what a phenomenal mini arc. Perhaps my favorite in the entire show. You know that feeling you get when you're watching an episode of television that you know is gonna go down as an all-time classic? That's how I felt watching Season 3, Episode 5. Miyuki's rap was incredible, as was Hayasaka finally letting her frustrations with Kaguya out, and the special ED that played at the end of only this episode. This is my favorite Kaguya episode of all time now. I also adored the entire Culture Festival arc that took up the back half of this season. Part of me feels like it might have worked better as a movie, but I guess it's not too hard to re-edit it that way yourself. All in all, it was immaculate. Ishigami's pursuit of Tsubame is genuinely sweet.
Get it?
Chika's detective shenanigans were a delight. Miko Ino was there also. And of course, Kaguya and Miyuki's master plans for each other, resulting in this gorgeous climactic moment together in the final episode. Oh, I can't! This show is so good! I teared up as I heard Miyuki's explanation for why he needed Kaguya to confess first, as well as when they finally well, I probably shouldn't say. Wouldn't want to spoil it for anyone who didn't take my initial advice to drop everything and watch this show in my previous Kaguya video. This is your second and final warning. Watch this show for the love of God. It is genuinely one of my favorite things ever, and it needs to be seen to be believed. I could fill up the entire rest of this video gushing about it, but we gotta move on to some other shows now. Kakushigoto is a short but sweet comedy series about a guy who writes dirty manga, and he doesn't want his 10-year-old daughter to find out, so he comically tries to keep his entire job a secret from her. And that's about it. It's just a charming, wacky slice-of-life anime where we get to see the zany hijinks this dude gets into, as well as the heartwarming devotion he has for his daughter. I love his quirky staff, and it's really cool to get a glimpse into the process of how manga is made. There's also an interesting mystery element set in the future that I won't talk too much about, but it definitely kept me guessing, and I liked its ultimate payoff. Overall, I think the show is sweet as hell and very underrated, so definitely go show it some love. How are so many people getting my number? I don't get it. Hello?
Hey James, I was wondering if you could review Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken by any chance? It's directed by one of the most prominent anime directors working today, Masaki Yuasa. It's got some killer anime references, and it's just an overall easy breezy watch for any animation fan.
Oh, is it? Is it really? Yeah, probably is. Let's talk about it. Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken is a heckin' wholesome show about 3 girls who team up to make an anime together. The characters are super fun and expressive, and you really grow to love their camaraderie and their passions for what they're making. Because honestly, that's what the main appeal of the show is. Seeing these girls delve into the creative process and showing off how anime is developed. It's so nice to watch a show that's all about the passion that goes into creating art. I suspect that a lot of aspiring artists will be able to greatly connect with this show for that reason. Though, for me personally, I'd say it was really good, but not much more. It's a very easy breezy show that more so exists to showcase the process of making anime, rather than telling a super interesting narrative. I guess I prefer how something like Whisper of the Heart focuses more so on the artists themselves and their personal struggles and insecurities with creating something. It's not really as focal to this show, and as a result, it didn't overwhelmingly win me over. But it has won a ton of other people over, so definitely check it out. It might just become one of your favorite things ever if you're an aspiring creative. It's got really impressive animation, particularly during the fantasy sequences where the girls actually go inside the fictional world they're creating. And yeah, overall, it's some really good stuff. Go watch it. Komi Can't Communicate is the definition of a comfort anime. It's just such a nice, sweet slice of life series that's just incredibly cozy to vibe to. It follows the titular Komi who can't communicate due to her extreme social anxiety, so she writes all her thoughts down on paper. She befriends Tadano, who vows to help her reach her goal of making 100 friends. And then from there, they just kinda go on charming escapades together, often accompanied by one of my favorite characters in any anime ever, Najimi. This mischievous little scamp is so funny and so entertaining. I literally cannot get enough of Najimi, and I get so excited every time they're on screen. I also love the trio dynamics between Komi, Tadano, and Najimi, which tragically aren't as prevalent in season 2, and from what I hear are even less prevalent in the manga going forward. So sad. The side characters can also be pretty hit or miss. Like, I enjoy the hardcore gamer girl and the flaky space cadet, and especially the girl who's just kind of normal and nice. A great contrast to all the oddballs in the series. But there's a few characters I really don't like. Some of them are boring and only really there to fill space on Komi's friend list. Then there's Agari, who seems normal at first, but then pulls a 180 and wants to be treated as Komi's dog. She gets better as the series goes on. You know who doesn't get better though? Yamai, the creepy as shit yandere who constantly describes her disturbing sexual obsession with Komi, who in her introductory episode kidnaps Tadano and threatens to murder him just because she's jealous Komi is spending time with him. Legitimately, I cannot recommend this show to anyone without preemptively apologizing for Yamai's existence. Whenever she shows up in any episode, it puts me in a bad f***ing mood. I think she's second only to Sho Tucker in terms of being the most hateable anime character I've ever seen. The good news is that whenever Yamai isn't around, I adore this show. It's so sweet, and you love seeing Komi's successes and adorable moments over time. It's definitely not for everyone. Like, it's loaded with too many obnoxious anime tropes to really serve as a great introduction to the medium. But if you can stomach all that, this is just such a genuine, adorable series that I could vibe to forever. It's on Netflix if you want to check it out. Though I personally wouldn't recommend the dub, just because Najimi's sub voice is forever ingrained in my brain as the perfect voice for the character, and I refuse to adapt or change. Kotaro Lives Alone is an anime about a 4-year-old boy named Kotaro who lives alone. Maybe, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell based on the title. At first, you think this is a really cute, quirky show about this precocious little baby who talks like some fancy, noble knight and gets into wacky shenanigans with his manga artist neighbor. It's adorable! Until you keep watching and realize how horribly depressing it is. Yeah, while there are tons of lighthearted moments, there's also so many dark and sad and uncomfortably tragic revelations as the series unfolds. Part of me feels like the series does pull on the old heartstrings too much, making some of the drama come across as rather repetitive and predictable. But man, when this show hits, it really hits, man. This little guy deserves the world, and I cried so many tears over him. It's just a nice slice of life dramedy that's equal parts comforting and heartbreaking, with a good premise and charming characters. Definitely worth a watch if you're okay with getting your heart ripped out. Lord El-Melloi II's case files Rail Zeppelin Grace Note. Somebody needs to send the Fate title department a cease and desist.
You need to stop this.
Anyway, a pretty good show to watch if you're obsessed with Waver Velvet, which I am.
Way to go, Sir Great Big Ben London Star! That's not my name!
The series follows him as an adult teaching at the clock tower and solving mysteries, and yeah, it's pretty cute. Not anything substantial, but it's very cool to see how Waver grew up and where he's at now. His students are especially really fun characters. My GF loves Flat Escardos like a son, and I'm pretty partial to Luvia myself. IDK, she's probably my favorite Fate girl. Sorry, Reen.
Damn you.
Much like Babylonia, I wasn't too gripped by the story, but the characters really kept me engaged.
You've really done it this time, Waver. I don't even know what the hell's going on anymore.
All in all, a really nice little show. Plus, the ending really made me soft. Well, we've reached the middle of the alphabet. M, which also stands for manga. Guess now would be a good time to take a little break from all this anime discussion and mention some manga I've been reading. There isn't much. Mainly I just started regularly visiting my local Barnes & Noble and skimming the manga based on the anime I've been watching. I've been collecting every issue of the Kaguya manga I could find, and I intend to read them all soon and get caught up, since it's uncertain how much they're going to adapt in the anime. I read some of the Kirby manga, which is pretty delightfully batshit insane. I never expected this to be Kirby's personality if you let him talk in full sentences, but it's pretty fun regardless. But in terms of full manga I've read in their entirety, the only one of those would be Hell's Paradise, a manga my girlfriend got particularly into, so I took it upon myself to read the entire 127 chapter story in only one day. Partially to impress her, but also partially because it was just that gripping. I genuinely couldn't put it down. It has such a cool concept and I love its characters so much. Yuzuriha and Sagiri are gay, thank you very much. Anyway, the story is super gripping and constantly keeps you on the edge of your seat, and the art is fantastic. There's an anime adaptation set to release very soon, so I expect this will be a much more popular series once that comes out. It was really cool to get in on the ground floor with this one and get super invested in it before it explodes in popularity. So until the anime releases, here's a bunch of fake panels I made to tide you over while you wait. So that's basically it in terms of manga I read.
Oh, James, how could you say all of that and not mention the greatest manga of all time? A Man and His Cat.
Oh my god, how could I forget how much Chris loves A Man and His Cat? Chris, please tell us all about it.
You wanna know something funny and also really freaking cool? This was self-published by Umi Sakurai, the creator of A Man and His Cat. She posted it to her Pixiv and Twitter accounts for a long time. Now Square Enix has serialized it. To give you a very quick synopsis of this manga, it is about a quote, ugly, unquote, cat and the titular man, a man by the name of Mr. Kanda. Mr. Kanda goes to a pet store one day and adopts the cat, the titular cat, who he then names Fukumaru. This manga is amazing as it accurately portrays what happens when you own a cat. Your cat's going to get into hijinks, just like Fukumaru does, and you're gonna have to deal with the consequences of it. Whether or not it's your cat invading your personal privacy, going into places where they shouldn't be, getting stuck on high ledges and then crying out for help. One thing I want to point out here is just how amazingly well done the art is for this manga. I mean, just look at Fukumaru here. He's so freaking cute, I want to pinch his little cheeks with a little scrunklo. And I mean, Mr. Konda himself ain't too bad looking either. I can't recommend enough that you take the time out of your day and go to Barnes & Noble's and you pick up a copy of A Man and His Cat. Either you read it there, or you buy it and you take it home like I have. It is an amazing, amazing read. The characters are lovable, the art style is lovable, and what more can I say? I'm a cat owner. It's the perfect manga, man.
That was epic. Anyway, before getting back to anime, I guess now's a good time to talk about SurfsharkVPN or something. An incredible product that encrypts your data and protects you online. SurfsharkVPN allows you to access geo-restricted content, meaning you can trick your browser into thinking you're in another country, thus allowing you to access content you couldn't get otherwise. That way, you don't have to physically travel to another country to watch that country's exclusive Netflix or Disney Plus content, for example. If there's any anime that refuse to come to a streaming service in your country, bada boom! Use Surfshark and spirit yourself away to Japan. I might just do that myself to watch Tatami Time Machine Blues, which is only available on Japan Disney Plus because God forbid American Disney Plus have any cool original content on it. Actually, Andor's pretty good. And so is Surfshark, because you can also use its Surfshark alert system to get alerts anytime your email address or password is compromised. Surfshark Alert scans various databases of leaked information and notifies its users if their data is found so they can take action, which is an absolutely invaluable feature. Yamai isn't getting your private data, even if she kidnaps you and threatens to leave you in a ditch somewhere. Seriously, does anyone like this character? I have not found a single fan of her yet. Go to surfshark.deal/Rillis and enter promo code Rillis to get 83% off and 3 extra months of Surfshark VPN for free. It's an amazing deal, and it's even better because it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied, you can cancel during those 30 days and get your money back. If you're looking for a great VPN, there's no reason not to give Surfshark a try. Once again, head to surfshark.deal/Rillis and enter the promo code Rillis. Have a great time with Surfshark VPN.
Oi! Word's been going around that you finally started your Weeb arc, yeah? Started been watching a little anime? Now I could finally talk about my favorite show of all time, which is an anime, of course, duh. It's Mob Psycho 100, baby! Mob Psycho 100! I never thought I'd find an anime that really just pops the heck off with its animation, and no other people could have done it without Studio Bones. I think they did freaking phenomenal with this, and totally has gained my respect for them. Now, I want to know, what did you think about this show, James?
Can I just start out by saying that holy shit, this show has the best OPs out of any anime I've seen. All 3 of them are absolute bangers in the musical and visual department. Like, they absolutely did not need to pop off this hard. These are just jaw-droppingly incredible. And the show itself ain't too shabby either. I love Mob Psycho 100. From its vivid animation style to its incredible cast of characters to the top tier comedic writing. Mob is such a wholesome and compelling protagonist, and I adore his surprisingly emotional relationship with Reagan, who's pretty much one of the best anime characters of all time. He's essentially the anime version of Saul Goodman, just this supremely fun and hilarious scammer who claims to be a psychic even though he has no special abilities to speak of. So he essentially uses Mob's abilities to take care of his clients' problems. I really just can't get enough of these two and their wacky misadventures together. The episodes that focus on their relationship and interactions are easily my favorites in the whole show. I also love the slice of life stuff involving Mob's school life, from him dealing with a crush he has on another classmate, to the wholesome bonds he forms with the Body Improvement Club. Weirdly enough, I enjoy these slice of life stories and their genuinely hysterical jokes a lot more than the more action-oriented arcs, which are still great, don't get me wrong. I just feel like they sometimes throw a ton of new characters at you without much build-up, and they don't flow as well as they could, but that's a minor issue. I don't want to discredit the insane animation or the legitimately really intense dramatic moments that show up during the action-focused storylines. Me personally, I just like the goofier and more laid-back elements of the series a lot more, but that's a personal preference thing. Mob Psycho 100 is an incredible show and one of the easiest recommendations I have out of everything in this entire video. Season 3 is currently airing right now, so yeah, hop on board if you haven't already, because this show is really great. Oh boy, here we go. So, out of all the anime I watched in the past year, there were only 2 of them I outright disliked. Those being Fate Apocrypha and My Dress-Up Darling. Disliked is putting it mildly, of course. I really fucking hate this show. So much so that I considered not even talking about it because of how sharp a contrast it would be to what's otherwise an incredibly positive series of recommendations for shows I enjoyed. So I'll just keep this brief. If you like this show, that's totally fine. I can certainly see the appeal. But I just kind of felt like it was being really pandery to the incel crowd. Like, above all else, it came across to me as fantasy wish fulfillment for guys who wanted a cute cosplay GF who constantly showers them with attention. Clearly, that's not its only audience. I know a good number of women who really like this show, but I also know a good number of women and men who despise it as much as I do, so there's that. Again, it's perfectly valid to like or dislike it. I mean, I really wanted to like it. There's a lot of interesting information about how cosplay works and the process of making one. And there's a few cute romantic moments with the leads towards the end. But these moments just got buried underneath all of the seemingly endless bizarre fan service. It's just really painful to watch Marin constantly make Gojo uncomfortable by exposing herself in front of him without a second thought. I know her character misses social cues often, so it's not exactly her fault, but it doesn't change how uncomfortable it is to watch these scenes unfold. They're not funny or enjoyable, and I constantly felt like I was going to be put on an FBI watch list while viewing this. And that was before we got introduced to the Lolly character by having the main character walk in on her entirely naked. I genuinely do not feel comfortable continuing to talk about this show. It's indicative of the side of anime that I don't want to delve into and that most anime haters avoid. If you'd like to write me an essay in the comments on why I'm wrong about this show, feel free to. I won't read it, but maybe it'll convince other people to check it out. Again, you are free to like this show or check it out, and I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not even gonna say it's a bad show. It's just one I thoroughly despise with every fiber of my being. One where the mountains of fan service buried all the sweet and interesting moments it had and made me feel nothing for these characters as a result. At least the ED was cute, I guess. Evangelion is a show with a funny penguin in it. Okay, I'm kinda cheating with this one, because I actually did watch Persona 4 the animation long before I got hooked on anime watching in general. Right after beating Golden for the first time, I figured I'd check it out. And, this is way better than any game to anime adaptation has any right to be. They went above and beyond with the writing here in both the comedy and the drama departments. First of all, the show is funny as hell. They turn the silent protagonist, Yu Narukami, into this consistently witty Giga Chad, who responds to any situation in the driest, funniest manner possible.
Something bit me.
Whoa! Anna left teeth marks too! Are you okay?
I might be dying.
No, you're not.
He plays a huge part in making scenes that were already pretty funny in the game, even funnier in the anime version. On top of that, there's completely new scenes in this anime that weren't in the game at all, yet they fit in perfectly and slay me every time.
Stop running from me! Huh? What the hell?
I've got your order here.
Can I just say that I love the Beef Bowl girl and her hilarious stoicism? Like, she's one of my favorite Persona 4 characters, and she wasn't even in the original game. The anime made her up, and she's still one of my favorites. Incredible. But on top of all the amazing comedy, the drama here is really good too. They adapted key moments like Nanako running away from and reconciling with Dojima incredibly well. And they even added a lot of great stuff, like some of the backstory of Chie and Yukiko's friendship. It's super well realized, and it enhances the story of the game rather than detracting from it. In general, the pacing is really good in this show. Not perfect, but considering how they had to condense a 90-hour game into 25 episodes, they honestly did an exceptional job. Everything flows really well, and not much feels rushed. I wish they got to do more with certain social link characters, especially best non-party member girl Yumi, who gets insultingly shafted. But for the most part, yeah, as a massive fan of Persona 4 and its characters, I was immensely satisfied with this adaptation. I feel like it could probably stand on its own and be enjoyed by someone who doesn't have time to play the game, even though obviously you get more out of it if you're a fan of Persona 4 already. Still, either way, I'd highly recommend it. Great stuff. Here we go again. Hello!
Shave, buddy, can you talk about Persona 4 the animation? It's what got me into the series and it's just like the games, but anime. So can you please hurry up and talk about it?
You missed it. I literally just did.
Oh. Well, I guess my work here is done.
Well, hey, next on my list is Persona 4 Golden the animation, if you want to stick around and hear me talk about that. Yeah, that's what I figured. Honestly, I completely forgot I watched this when putting this video together. Persona 4 The Golden Animation is essentially just DLC for the original Persona 4 anime. Rather than retell the same events as the original, this is just 12 episodes that adapt the new content that was added to Persona 4 Golden, meaning each episode jumps around at different points in the game's timeline. If you try and just watch the show on its own, it'll make no sense because of the time jumps. So it only really works for people who have seen the original anime or played the game. Anyway, is it good? This anime was made by a different production company than the original Persona 4 the animation. And even though I don't know much about the reputations of various anime studios, I do know that A1 Pictures over here is pretty infamous for being a very hit or miss studio. I mean, they did make Kaguya, which is peak fiction, so all is forgiven for that. But yeah, this show is a noticeable downgrade. Not nearly as funny or dramatically compelling, and most episodes just revolve around the new character Marie. I've never been a part of the Marie hate train like a lot of other Persona fans, but I also don't think she's nearly interesting enough to carry the vast majority of this show. The only episodes I enjoyed were the Christmas episode, which had a lot of that wacky, goofy charm similar to the original Persona 4 anime, and the Adachi-focused episodes, because Adachi is based. Plus, we also got some interesting backstory filled in for him, which is pretty nice and welcome. Overall, a very mixed bag of a show. It was never outright bad, but it also didn't leave nearly as big of an impression on me as the original Persona 4 anime, and it's basically useless without outside knowledge of the game or the original show. If you really want to consume all Persona 4 content out there, it sure does exist, I guess. But I don't expect to rewatch it nearly as much as the original anime. Restaurant to Another World is food porn, plain and simple. The story and characters in the show are honestly just secondary to the show's desire to make you ask, why does anime good look so food? As you take in its sights and hear customers' extended articulate descriptions of how good the food is and how well it was made. And that's pretty much it. Don't get me wrong, I love food, and it's cool to see how scrumptious the food in this show looks, as well as hearing about how delectable it is. But you kinda get the gist of this show in the first episode, and I can safely say that if I wasn't making this video, I would not have stuck around for all 24 episodes. Every episode follows the exact same format. Some sort of fantasy character is doing a fantasy adventure that ultimately doesn't matter that much. Then they find a mysterious door that leads them to the restaurant to another world. They then eat food here and leave. There's some very minor character progression as the series goes on, but it's not really anything that substantial. What you see is what you get. I like the premise and the characters enough, but it's an extremely repetitive series by design, and I'd only really recommend checking out a couple of episodes, or just putting the show on as pleasant background noise when you're playing video games or something. It's certainly not a bad show, it does exactly what it sets out to accomplish, but it just definitely didn't need to go on as long as it did.
I'll never cook for any of you again.
Revue Starlight is a show about a bunch of theater girls who compete against each other in elaborate theatrical musical battles, and there's lesbian undertones between them all, and also there's a talking giraffe. Honestly, the more time passes since I watched this show, the more it just feels like a weird fever dream I had. Not a lot of people talk about it, and it is incredibly bizarre. I'd even go so far as to say it's pretty abstract and a bit confusing at times, but I still think it was pretty neat. The main two girls have a similar dynamic to Phoenix and Edgeworth. There's a girl who likes bananas, and she's really nice. The giraffe exists for some reason, like I said. Honestly, it's really hard to put my thoughts on this one into words, so I guess I'll keep things brief and say that I thought it was solid. Definitely worth a watch since the anime is only 12 episodes long, and the sequel movie has a Mad Max Fury Road reference, so that's epic.
Hey Jeeves, can you talk about Rock Dog? Oh wait, come again? What do you mean Rock Dog isn't an anime? It's based off a Chinese manga. That technically counts as an anime, right? Alright, fine. What else can I talk about then? Sk8 The Infinity. Hey James, can you talk about Sk8 The Infinity? Now, I would say I have nothing particular to say about this anime, since I've never seen it and don't plan to watch it anytime soon, but I do remember watching this one scene from the dub where this guy says,
Hey, bitches and bros and non-binary hoes!
And I thought it was so funny that I managed to get funny man Dana Snyder to say that line in his Jellystone Snagglepuss voice at a convention I was at earlier this year.
Greetings, bitches, bros, and non-binary hoes. All my favorite folks. Ouch! I stepped on my tail.
So yeah, thank you funny man Dana Snyder. Anyways, let's get back to
Gay people.
Sk8 The Infinity is one of the gayest things I have ever seen in my life. There is absolutely no heterosexual explanation for Reki and Langa's relationship. And I'm not just saying that because I want them to get together. No, I dare you to watch this show and then try and tell me with a straight face that that's not what the writers were going for.
Reki, my love of skateboarding.
Are you fucking kidding me? But yeah, honestly, this is one of my favorite romance animes I've ever seen, and it's not even explicitly a romance. Yet. We don't even know if it will be, since this anime is completely original and not based on a manga. But like, it is a romance, we all know it. Anyway, yeah, this is a really good show where Roy Fire Emblem and his boyfriend take part in some epic skateboarding competitions and face off against homoerotic vampire Phoenix Wright. The skateboarding is animated insanely well, like good lord, it feels like you're on a roller coaster ride when you watch these scenes. The music is also top notch and contributes to some truly breathtaking skating sequences. The story of season 1 is pretty standard and has a bit of melodrama that I don't love. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this show, and I'm incredibly hyped to watch season 2 when it comes out. But Reki and Langa better kiss this time, I swear. Spy X Family is one of the most recent critical darlings in the anime community. It seems like everyone's talking about it, and it's easy to see why. The premise is just so overwhelmingly creative and fun. A spy, an assassin, and a telepath all coming together to form a fake family, while also trying to keep their respective roles a secret from each other. It's just such a great concept for a show that's executed beautifully here. Lloyd, Yor, and especially Anya are just such lovable characters that play off of each other amazingly well. And it's a testament to how well realized they all are that the episodes with the more mundane premises, like Anya practicing for a dodgeball game at school, are just as entertaining as the ones with actual spy shit going down. And seriously, I can't stress enough how adorable Anya is. I literally clap for her every time she does something cute, which is basically everything she does, so yeah, that's a lot of clapping. The setting is also really unique and cool, and the side characters are a ton of fun as well. At the time I'm writing this, only the first 12 episodes have aired, and I don't really want to read ahead in the manga and spoil myself. But one thing I am hoping for is that Yor gets to do more assassin work, since her being an assassin has barely factored into the show thus far, outside of her teaching Anya cool fighting moves. I'm also hoping for more creative episode premises, like the one where Lloyd wastes valuable spy agency resources just to make a pretend spy rescue reenactment for Anya, since that episode did a great job of really bridging the spy and family parts of the show together, in a way not all episodes do. But yeah, for the most part, I really love this one, and I think it definitely lives up to all the hype it's been getting. Don't go into it expecting all action all the time, since it's more of a balance between that and wholesome slice of life family stuff. But yeah, really, really good, and I'm super excited for more episodes. The Disastrous Life of Saiki K was a very commonly suggested show for me to check out in the comments of my Kaguya video. I was told that if I liked the comedy in Kaguya, then I would definitely like Saiki, as it's largely considered to be one of the funniest animes out there. After watching the show, I can safely say, yep, you guys were right. I had an absolute blast with Saiki, and it's definitely up there as one of my favorites. The premise of the show is just so fun. Saiki is a teenager with various psychic abilities, but he just wants to live a normal life and be left alone. Unfortunately, he hardly ever gets what he wants. Not just because of his often uncontrollable psychic abilities messing things up for him, but because of all the wacky characters in his life trying to rope him into things he really doesn't want to do. The humor in this show is insanely off the wall and hysterical. At times, the show got so absurd that it even reminded me of Chowder, which, if you know me, is a massive compliment. Saiki is an incredible source of dry humor, and his stoic, cynical nature is a great contrast to the energetic, over-enthusiastic supporting cast. You got Nendo, who's a delightful example of the idiot best friend character. Then there's Kaido, who thinks he's some ultra powerful hero, and he has this hilarious theme song that plays every time he tries to do anything. There's Teruhashi, who everyone considers to be this perfect pretty girl, to the point where she always has this glowing aura around her. It's like the way everyone treats Komi, except 10 times funnier. There's a couple shitty characters, like this one guy who's the typical anime pervert, and he pretty much drags down every episode he's in. But for the most part, I love this show's cast, and I got really attached to them as the show went on. I love seeing the rare moments where Saiki gets genuinely happy, or when he does something for other people's benefit, even though he just wants to be left alone. I just really love this show, and I'd recommend it to anyone who wants a super funny comfort watch. It's very rare that I get this hooked on an episodic show with a very minimal overarching story, but that just goes to show how fun this show is. I was constantly dying to watch the next episode just to see what sort of wacky, silly shenanigans Saiki and the gang would get into. The whole show's on Netflix, and the dub is pretty strong, so yeah, check it out. When I was making this script, I put off talking about the Tatami Galaxy for a really long time, cause, well, I just didn't know how to put my feelings into words about this show. Calling it something special would be an understatement. It's genuinely one of the most artistically rich and thought-provoking things I've seen in quite some time. I don't feel well enough equipped to delve into its themes in a short blurb in a video with segments about 30 other anime. Hell, I don't know if I feel well enough equipped to delve into it at all. The bottom line is, it's genuinely incredible and something that gets better and better the more time passes and the more I think about it. The art style and overall animation are unlike anything I've ever seen before, blending the occasional live-action footage with an incredibly striking color palette and super expressive character and environment design. It's a miniseries that just oozes creativity at every turn, both in its concepts and its presentation. And I think those who are college-aged will really connect with it and get a lot out of it. It's a really fascinating reflection on the choices we make and the different outcomes that can result from them. And I feel like it'll hit a lot harder for the 18 to 25-year-old crowd. I have very little complaints with this show, honestly. Maybe the gag with the penis cowboy got a little old as time went on, but that's about it. And no, I will not elaborate on what that means. I don't know, man. This just really stuck with me, and I can't stop thinking about it. If you watch and enjoy it, definitely also check out the spiritual successor film, Night is Short, Walk On Girl. It's kind of an alternate universe take on these familiar characters, like Majora's Mask is to Ocarina of Time. But it's still got the same charm, whimsy, and animation as the Tatami Galaxy. A delightful miniseries that I wholeheartedly recommend. It's only 11 episodes, you got nothing to lose. Just watch it, baby. Oh, and good luck getting the OP out of your head. Oh my god, we're still not done with Fate. How big is this series? What the fuck? Today's menu for the Emiya family is basically Restaurant to Another World, but with Fate characters. It's an alternate reality version of Fate Stay Night, where nobody wants to kill each other, and instead they all come over to Shiru's house to eat food he makes.
I do not kill people. That is my least favorite thing to do.
There's not a whole lot else to say. It's just a pretty cute slice of life show. I like it better than Restaurant to Another World, because not only is it half the length, but it involves familiar characters that we already know and love, which gets us more attached to the slice of life shenanigans these characters get into. The art style is super cute and distinct from other Fate shows. They even do a beach episode at one point, and anime good look-so food. So yeah, I like this one. It's definitely inessential fluff in the grand scheme of the Fate series, but if you already like the Fate Stay Night characters, then literally why not check it out, you know?
Get me, son! Bell, 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 bell!
Toradora is a rom-com I was told I would like because I'm such a massive fan of Kaguya. So I checked it out, and yeah, I liked it. It was pretty cute. It's about a guy and girl named Ryuji and Taiga who have crushes on each other's best friends. So they try and help each other pursue said crushes, but then things start getting complicated and ooh, wow, I wonder what's gonna happen. Yeah, it's a fairly predictable show, but that's not really a detriment. It can just be a really nice and comforting watch, with pretty layered and sympathetic characters who are developed more and more as the series goes on. Which is a good thing, because I really couldn't stand one of them at first, and that's Taiga. For real, this show be so fine, and then boom, Taiga physically assaults Ryuji for no reason. And this happens over and over again throughout the first half of the show. It gets really uncomfortable to watch real quick, since they always seem to play it for comedy. Even though it's obviously not funny, didn't laugh. A lot of her verbal assaults are also kind of exhausting. Like, there's this girl that she calls a dumb chihuahua like 500 times over the course of the show, and that never gets old. Speaking of which, said dumb chihuahua girl is also kind of irritatingly mean, while pretending that she's this perfect pretty girl. Basically, she's just Teruhashi from Saiki K, but without the funny. But I'd be lying if I said these two didn't get better as the series went on. Plus, from beginning to end, I really liked Minori, the girl Ryuji has a crush on. She's quirky and goofy and a bubbly ray of sunshine, but not airheaded, and she can be incredibly serious when she needs to be. So yeah, I do really like this show, but it is kinda rough around the edges, and it takes a little while for some of the characters to click. If you're okay with a pretty mean-spirited start, then I definitely recommend this. But if you're not in the mood to see a guy get beaten up for no reason 50 times, then I'd recommend just sticking to Kaguya. Unlimited Blade Works. Technically, the title of this show is Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, but I didn't want to put 4 Fate shows in a row. Might as well spread them out a bit. Anyway, I've heard that the common consensus seems to be that Fate Zero is the best Fate show, but for me personally, I think this one slightly edges it out. I love Unlimited Blade Works, the anime that's based on the original Fate product that spawned everything else, the 2004 visual novel. It focuses on Shiru Emiya and his servant Saber, who ally with Rin Tosaka, who would be my personal pick for best girl in all of Fate if it wasn't for Luvia.
You think you're better than me? I am better than you.
Anyway, they're competing in another Holy Grail war, and that's all I'll say because I don't want to spoil anything. Also, at this point in the video, I'm just really tired of describing anime synopses. This video seemed like a really good idea at first, but now I'm just very drained, and Patrick and I still have a 30+ page Clone Wars script to finish. Good lord. Anyway, what I love about this show is how focused it is. Fate is a franchise with a ton of characters and intersecting plots that can be pretty overwhelming and hard to follow for newcomers, but this one's pretty easy to grasp, with the focus mainly being on Shiru and Rin the whole time. Having clear central protagonists allows them to be incredibly well developed and the subjects of a ton of great drama. There's a twist that I wasn't expecting at all, and it leads to some genuinely incredible emotional moments later down the line. Some of my favorites in all of Fate. Plus, that pesky Gilgamesh is back, and probably at his best and most villainous in this show. He's a sheer delight to watch. Taiga's not super important, but I love her too. Shinji's a piece of shit that I loved hating. And the relationship between Rin and Shiru is just really heckin' wholesome. The animation is incredible, and the action is all top notch. And yeah, overall, this is a series that I can't praise enough. I guess my only real issue is that there's a phenomenal climax involving one of the villains, and it feels like it's going to be the climax for the whole show. But then it has to keep going so we can deal with the other villain, and I just feel like the conflict with him wasn't as interesting. Still great, but kind of an underwhelming follow-up in comparison to how legendary that other confrontation was. But it's a minor gripe. I love this show, and it's definitely my favorite Fate product I've experienced. I'd even personally recommend this over Fate Zero as an introduction to the series for newcomers. I just think it's a lot easier to follow and get invested in, especially since a lot of my appreciation for Fate Zero came from the second viewing after seeing this. So yeah, definitely check it out. Just don't play FGO. That leads to the dark side.
That's hell you're walking into.
I don't even care.
Da-da-da-da. Dun, dun, dun. Yona of the Dona is a fantasy series about Yona, a princess who's forced to flee her kingdom after a coup, as she's gotta learn how to become a fighter and recruit the 4 dragon warriors who can help take her kingdom back. Sadly, no, Poe is not one of the dragon warriors in this show. Truly tragic. My girlfriend really loves this one, but I just kinda thought it was okay. A lot of the first half just feels like a typical fantasy series with characters who are decently likable, but not much more. Also, Hawk has quite a few creepy moments, which is like,
But I might misbehave.
What do you mean?
If I'm overcome with passion. Even if you're joking, that's going too far.
By the second half, I liked the series a lot more. I started to get more comfortable with the characters, there's a pretty cool arc involving pirates, and they introduced my favorite character in the series, the fun and lovable yellow dragon warrior Zeno. In the very last episode.
We don't have time for that.
What?
Yeah, here's the thing about Yona. It seems that despite a slow and somewhat generic start, it was really starting to ramp up and become a pretty entertaining series to follow. But then the anime ended just as it was getting good. Only one season, with 3 OVAs and a huge amount of story content from the manga that never saw an adaptation. The last OVA released in 2016, and there's been no word about a follow-up season since. That's a real bummer, but I guess the show is still worth checking out since at least the story does continue in the manga. I'd personally keep reading to see what happens next, if only I had the spare time. But if you've got that time, then I think the series might be a cool one to follow. I got a ton of Avatar Season 1 vibes from the one and only season of Yona there is. Something that's not the greatest, but showed plenty of signs that it could blossom into something incredible. So yeah, worth checking out, and if you like it, there's plenty of manga you can delve into to see how the rest of the story unfolds.
That can't be it. Where's the rest of it?
You should read the manga! Next time on Yona of the Donut.
You know, it's nice that the interruptions have finally died off and I don't have any more people requesting anime. Why does God hate me? Hello!
Hey, James, you gotta talk about Yuri on Ice.
I'm on it. Never ask me for anything ever again, commenters. Last but certainly not least, we have Yuri on Ice. If I had a nickel for every anime about a skating competition with a gay romance included, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? Anyway, Yuri on Ice, the show about a figure skater named Yuri.
On ice?
Yeah!
His figure skating idol Victor agrees to train him and they develop a bit of a romance. And this time it's actually explicit, unlike Sk8 The Infinity. But let's be honest, that show is explicit too, they just didn't outright say it. While here, they actually say it. There's also another figure skater named Yuri who develops a rivalry with our Yuri, and they both enter a figure skating competition, and oh my god, I need to talk about the animation on the figure skating now. It's so good! Just so insanely fluid and well directed and honestly mesmerizing. These extended skating sequences are easily the best part of the show. But it's not like the characters are any slouch either. I love them too. Yuri and Victor's relationship is so wholesome and endearing. Plus, you really want to see Yuri succeed and get better at figure skating, and it's so good! I guess my only real complaint is that the show can be a little repetitive, with a lot of episodes following the exact same formula. But the show's only 12 episodes long, so it's not really a huge issue. Seriously though, can they do a season 2 already? God damn. Overall, I really adore this show. It's just such an incredibly cozy and wholesome watch with strong characters and dazzling animation. Definitely give it a watch. So yeah, that's all the anime I've seen now. I purposely didn't rank them all because number 1, that's hard to do, and number 2, I would definitely get yelled at in the comments for some of my placements. But I will offer my top 10 favorites at least. That way you can see what my strongest recommendations are. And if your favorite anime didn't make the top 10, you can just pretend they're number 11 and be happy and not get mad at me. Cool? Cool. Number 10, Spy X Family. An incredibly easy show to like and get into with a great concept and delightful characters. Especially Anya. Number 9, Demon Slayer. Next level animation with incredibly gripping action and a lot of sweet character moments to balance out the drama. Number 8, Unlimited Blade Works and Fate Zero. Yeah, I did say I like Unlimited Blade Works better, but I'm just gonna lump these in the same spot because they're both super similar in terms of quality. Incredibly strong stories with great characters and overall the perfect entry points to get into Fate. I just realized long after I wrote and recorded this that I accidentally forgot to put Cowboy Bebop in this top 10, so this is where it would go. Sorry about that. Number 7, Mob Psycho 100. My personal preference for the slice of life elements of this show over the action hold it back a little bit. If I was looking at these shows critically, this will be a lot higher because I don't have much bad to say about it. It's incredible and you really need to give it a watch. Number 6, the Tatami Galaxy. Again, critically I'd rank this higher, like probably number 3. It's just that numbers 3 through 5 are much cozier watches for me and appeal to my personal preferences more. Not to say that this one doesn't, because yeah, it's really stuck with me after all this time and I adore so much about it. Once again, it's only 11 episodes and you've got nothing to lose by checking it out, so please do. Number 5, The Disastrous Life of Saiki K. Easily one of the funniest anime I've seen. If you're just looking for a great, pure comedy series, this is such a delightful watch that I can't recommend enough. Number 4, Fruits Basket. Some of the sweetest characters and stories I've ever seen, which makes the intense drama and dark moments hit all the harder. It's a show that I just got lost in and never wanted to end. But thankfully, it did so in a beautiful manner. I genuinely adore it. Number 3, Komi Can't Communicate. Critically, this probably doesn't belong in the top 10, but in terms of how much I enjoy watching it, yeah, this is where I'd put it. It's also one of the sweetest things I've ever seen, and I could watch Komi, Tadano, and Najimi vibe together forever. It'd be a wholehearted recommendation if it wasn't for Yamai, who deserves to die a slow, painful death. Number 2, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. As I said earlier, one of the richest and most complete stories I've ever seen. Impeccable from a narrative, character, and world-building standpoint. Up there as one of the greatest achievements in the entire medium of anime. I genuinely cannot stop thinking about how phenomenal it is. And my number 1 favorite anime of all time is Kaguya-sama Love is War. Yeah, I mean, you probably already knew this. In addition to being my favorite anime, this is genuinely one of my top 10 favorite TV shows of all time. It hooks you in with its hysterical comedy and endlessly creative visuals, only to leave you thoroughly emotionally invested in the lives of these incredibly nuanced and layered characters. It's a show that consistently astounds me with how phenomenal it is from a comedic and dramatic standpoint. I've dedicated an entire analysis video and 3 AMVs on my second channel to it, and I want to make it explicitly clear that if you only take one thing away from this video, it's that you need to watch Kaguya Love is War. This show is genuinely peak fiction and one of my favorite pieces of media ever made. So yeah, that's about it. Depending on how this video does, I might do a follow-up in a year's time, since there's still plenty of anime I want to check out with the GF and our other friends. Oh, and please give me some recommendations in the comments. A lot of shows covered in this video, like Tatami Galaxy or Saiki K, got on our radar because you recommended them in the comments of my Kaguya vid. So please feel free to recommend some shows, especially now that you know what my preferences are. That's about it. Good night, Tri-State area.